I'm just going to hop on, talk a little bit about the rowing machine, how you can use it after a total knee replacement, and benefits, changes from other machines. So let me start with the rowing machine. So basic, let me move this little, no, wrong way. There you go. So basics with the rowing machine is, a lot of people think the rowing machine is actually an arm workout, but it's really not. It's really a leg workout. Now, when we take in the component of a total knee replacement, it's a little different because of range of motion issues after the total knee replacement while you're in the rehab process. So I'm going to tell you about the rowing machine in general, and then I'll go into things to consider while you're in the rehab part and why it's helpful to use in general, either during the rehab or afterwards. So rowing machine really is a leg workout. As a basic rowing thing, it is about 70% legs, 20% of core, and 10% arms. And it really goes in an order. So there's a sequence and there's an order to rowing. So I'm going to go over that, and then we'll talk about the different changes. So there's things that you can also change on this rowing machine to make it a little bit more helpful. There's this little thing on the side. It's a flywheel. If you have a water rower, it does not have that. The water changes it. But it's got this little thing on the side where you can change from 1 to 10, and it's up there. 1, basically all it does is it changes. It doesn't even change the resistance, but it feels like it is. So really, basically, it changes how it feels. So a 1 is like really, really easy. It's like if you're in water, you're rowing on nothing. You're literally just like rowing against air. There's no water. Then 3 to 5 is usually where rowers like me will put it. That makes it more like you're in a racing shell moving smoothly across the water. As you go higher, it feels harder, but it makes it easier for you to make the connection between you and the machine. So it's sometimes a good place to start, but also sometimes feels really, really intense, especially if you're doing it after a knee replacement. So you can always play with where that position is and see what's comfortable for you. It's okay to move that around. Like I said, it's a 3 to 5 for me. Then these little foot things. So these move up and down, and it's going to change where the strap goes around your foot. What I would say as a basic start for this is when your foot is in the strap, have that strap be around the widest part of your foot. So it basically ends up being almost where like the toe bones are, but not the toes. So the widest part of your foot, try putting that here. There's different reasons you might go up and down, but for basics, starting there usually puts you in a pretty solid position. You're trying to get your leg perpendicular to the ground, so this part of my leg, but if I have less range of motion in my knee, I'm not going to get there. So I'm just going with the ideal right now is to come up like this. You're as close as you can possibly get, and then you got your hands on the oar, and then you go in 3 different steps. So remember how I mentioned the legs are about 70%? If I grab this, the first thing I'm going to do is push with my legs. The second thing I'm going to do is bend back at my hips, and then I'm going to pull my arms in. Now to go back forward, I'm going to go arms, hips or trunk, and then legs. So it's the exact opposite. So it's legs, core, arms, arms, core, legs. And it literally breaks down like that. It becomes more fluid as I get more comfortable with the motion. It becomes a fluid movement, just like that. But that's the components. So there's 3 parts. Once you've got the 3 parts, you can start to put it all together, get it nice and smooth, and worry about things. But that's really important to consider so that you don't hurt your back, so that you don't hurt your knee, things like that. So for the total knee part of this, when we are here, if you don't have your full extension, usually extension is what you're working on getting first. You're trying to get that 0 degrees of extension. If you don't have that full extension, you might be slightly bent. In which case, what I would do, don't try and, so I'm going to pretend this one here, I don't know if the camera is going to reverse it, so I'm not saying what leg it is. So this leg here, say that this is my total knee replacement leg with decreased range of motion and I'm not quite at 0 degrees. What I'm gonna do is not straighten this one, otherwise it's gonna end up where my hips are all wonky and I'm a little rotated. Instead, I'm gonna go as straight as I can with my injured leg or with my total knee replacement leg, and I'm gonna make the other one match it. So don't worry about getting fully straight. Just go to where it's comfortable and as straight as you can get. Then, if you're lacking the bend of the flexion when you're forward, so let's say you're not quite at 90, right? Or you're a little over 90, I can't quite tell exactly where I am. Let's say this is pretty close to 90. What I'm gonna do is, instead of getting all the way up here, I'm just gonna shorten my stroke. So it's gonna be the same thing, but in a shorter motion. And it is completely okay to do this. This is actually a drill that we do. It's called a pick drill or a reverse pick drill. Part of it is literally only going halfway on the slide. So doing the same thing in a smaller range of motion. So if this is where you can get to, that's perfectly fine. Just keep your core nice and tight and still keep that order of legs, core, arms. And then everything will work smoothly together. I have something blocking the chat, so let me jump in real quick. Thanks, Karen. Okay, so that's how you can change the rowing machine for if you've got less range of motion, either in the extension or in the bend. That's something that you can try for that. And the actual mechanics of the rowing. So rowing really is a mostly leg exercise. You're working your quad. You're using the muscles in the back, so your posterior chain, so like your back muscles, your core muscles, your hamstrings, your quad. You're using all of those muscles, so it's really great to incorporate, and there's no impact to it. That's why this is a fantastic machine. So running, usually people equate to, hey, this is high impact, might not be perfect for right after a total knee replacement, depending on your doctor and your situation, whether you go back to rowing, to running, etc. So that's kind of the running treadmill kind of thing, and I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with that. And when I had with my patients, they're usually afraid to run right after something as well because it's going to hurt. So usually treadmill is not the first thing you're going to. Ellipticals are great. However, ellipticals, while it doesn't require as much of the bend in your knee, so the range of motion is different, the forces applied on the muscles and on where your leg is when you're moving. I don't have an elliptical, sorry. But when you're basically doing like this running type of motion, right? So as you're doing that motion, you're not making it as full body as this is. So it's actually great if you've got less motion, depending on if it aggravates your knee when you're in that forward position. There may be some reasons to do the elliptical, not to do the elliptical. Try, see if it hurts. The rowing machine makes it so you get your full core workout without the impact and making it work for you so that you don't have to push in to the range of motion that's uncomfortable. It also has an added benefit of you're probably given exercises that are intended to help increase the range of motion, like a bike, like the recumbent bike or a bike. And when you're first starting, you may not be doing your full revolution around like on a bike. You might be starting where you're doing like a pendulum type of thing to try and get your range of motion to increase. I'm sure some of you can probably relate to that. And then as you're going farther, you're like, oh, I'm closer and closer to getting all the way around. Okay, and then you get that one around. And then you can kind of go more and more. So rowing is more like that, in which case you're pushing into the range that's uncomfortable, but you can come right out of it. But at the same time, it's using the muscles a little bit more and a little bit differently. Hey, Christina, thanks for joining. So the bike pushes into that range of motion and makes you kind of go through it, right? At the same time, if you're not going all the way around, you don't really feel like you're getting any cardio benefit from it. You just feel like, oh, I'm pushing my range, I'm not getting tired. I mean, it might be hurting or it might be uncomfortable, but you're not really like getting out of breath or feeling like you're getting that workout sometimes we want that workout. The rowing machine gives you that ability to get that, which is pretty cool. So the rowing machine will make it, like I mentioned earlier, you just decrease the range of motion. So go within the range that you have. Don't worry about getting all crunched up at the front. Just go in the motion that's comfortable for you. And when you're in that motion, you can still be going back and forth, and that's going to get your core engaged. It's going to get all your muscles working. It's going to push into the range and out of the range of motion. So you're working on the mobility of getting that range for your knee. And when you're doing it, you're also getting some cardio buildup because you can increase your speed a little bit. At the same time, I would not recommend going hardcore, super fast. So one of the things I didn't mention about the rowing machine is, this might be too much information, but basically I mentioned there's the 3 parts to the rowing: legs, core, arms, core, legs. So just do it in that decreased range of motion. But if I'm in that decreased range of motion and I can't get full knee flexion and I'm going, at some point, if I go really fast, I'm probably going to push farther than my knee wants to go. And you're not going to be happy, and then you're going to be like, this rowing machine stinks, I don't like it, etc. And it's because of a control thing. So you're really actually better off going slow, thinking about the motion. And you can tell, like even me doing this right now, talking to you, there's a little bit of an effort in my breathing, and there's effort in my talking. So I can still get a cardio workout, but I'm in a smaller range, I'm still pretty slow. And that's okay. So I wouldn't pay attention to these numbers when you're working on it for the rehab component. To be honest with you, shortening the range, the numbers are going to get all messed up anyways. So I wouldn't really recommend paying attention to that hardcore. If you're rowing afterwards and you've got your range and you're really trying to work on it that way, that's where I'd start paying attention. But the part that I said might be too much information that I'll go into real quick is, so there's the 3 parts, but there's also different terms for the different parts of the stroke. So when I'm in this position, this is called the catch. And then what I do when I push my legs and I move my core and my arms out, that entire movement backwards is called the drive. And what's happening is we drive through our legs. So push through our legs or drive through our legs, and we really get that momentum. And that's where all the power is. Then the way back is called the recovery. It's called the recovery because it's where you breathe and you relax. But a lot of people end up like going really fast forward, and that decreases the purpose of recovery. It's your recovery. Enjoy it. So that part going forward should actually be pretty slow. Honestly, the slower you can go going forward, I will give you applause. When people go and like I said, don't pay attention to the numbers, so I'm not even going to give you any numbers. But when you can really slow down that forward, the going forward, it means you have control and you have connection with this machine. So the slower you can go going forward, honestly, the better your stroke is going to be when you're doing this otherwise. Okay, so first, does anyone have any questions? I went over a little bit about range of motion, how you can make that work. Tony actually modifies this machine in ways that I didn't even think about. Well, I've done some of them, but not all of them. So for me, I mentioned that this machine is primarily a leg workout. But I don't know if you guys have seen in the gym, there might be a bike like this that's an arm bike. The more you move with extremities or your arms or things closer to your heart, the more cardio you're actually going to be getting. So it is possible. Tony, I think, did a video where there's a person with their leg because they don't have the flexion to get in. Leg is off to the side. And what I would do is, I don't know if he did this, I would actually put a plate or something that will slide, like a slider, underneath that person's heel, and I would have it slide. So you're turning it into essentially like a one-armed, or you could go no slider and make them push into the range a little bit, and that's another way that you can work on the range. If you don't have a bike, you have a rower at home, that's another way that you can work on that range if it's not quite ready to get into these straps. So just take your foot out and go to where it's comfortable. If this is it, that's it. No big deal. But do what's comfortable for you. Push the range a little bit. And honestly, if you didn't want to make it cardio and you just wanted to kind of do the range of motion, you could just do this. If you want to turn it into a cardio arm workout, I'd go into the range and do it like that. And remember how I said there's a drill where we actually do it with less range of motion where we go to here. Part of that drill is actually core and arms only. So I might do it this way, and that's still getting my heart rate up. It's getting me moving. So there's lots of ways that you can modify this machine. You can push into the discomfort to where it's comfortable for you and where you and your PT or you and your doctor have talked about it. But basically, you can work on the range of motion, you can get your cardio endurance going, and you can modify it based on the range of motion that you have in different ways. So those are some tricks. If you have questions, please feel free to comment. Feel free to let me know, and I'll respond. If I need to do another video on it, I will. Thank you so much for having me and letting me do a video in this group. I feel honored. So thank you, Tony, for asking. And if you've got questions, just ask. I hope you guys have a great day.